Art, thank you very much for giving Greek TV the opportunity to interview you today. That's something I was looking forward for a long time. We talked about it, and finally we have the opportunity to do that.
Well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to our interview. I've always enjoyed talking with you when we meet in various community events. And thank you for what you do on Greek TV. All of us love to watch your program. It brings us news about the community and our culture.
I appreciate that. We are a Greek American television program, so let's talk about Art Agnos and his Greek roots. Your father and mother are Greeks from the old country.
Yeah, my mother and father are both from the greater metropolitan area of Pyrgos Thessalias. They came from little villages outside. My father's family were farmers, and my mother's family were small business people. They had a little Emborico, is that what they call it? Emborico, in Pyrgos, where they made their living. And my father came here, like many Greek Americans, in the early 1900s, in 1915, at the age of 15.
What was his last name in Greece?
Anagnostopoulos. And when he first got off the boat, they couldn't say Anagnostopoulos, so some immigration person made it Agnos. And that's what I've lived with.
Like for many other immigrants of that time. And your mother came later? Yeah,
my mother came after she married my father. When my father was at the age that he was ready to be married, in his mid-30s, around 35, he went back to the old country, to the village, and presented himself to his father, and they went out and arranged the prika and all the other things that were part of the traditions of those days in the late 30s. So my mother was married, introduced to my father, and 2 or 3 weeks later they were married. And a couple of weeks after that she was in America.
What part of America?
Springfield, Massachusetts was where my father had a small hat cleaning, smoke shop, shoe shine stand, where I grew up, working next to my father from the age of about 8 until I lost him when he was 15. When I was 15.
You were 15. How old was he when he...
My father died at the age of 55 of cancer, and then it was my mother's responsibility to come to the store and take over, because there was no welfare, there were no health plans. It was, you survived by what you earned. And so my mother came to the store, and I taught her the business, because I had been working there as a youngster, and she took over while I went and finished high school, and then to college, as did all my sisters. My mother promised...
2 sisters?
I have 2 sisters, Irene and Betty, and my mother promised my father that she would educate all of us. My father was a little old-fashioned. He said, well, just take care of the boy, and the girls will get married. But my mother showed signs of a progressive nature, and she educated the 2 girls. One became a teacher, and one became a nurse. I became a social worker, but we all went to college, and that's to her credit. Enormous strength to come into a business, not speaking English very well, never having worked out of the house, and learn and survive and send her children to college. But it's not an unusual story. It's just one that we're very proud of in our family.
The Greek mother.
Absolutely.
So you really had to work and try hard during those years, especially when you're...
Very hard years, very hard years, yeah. I went to school, I went down, and I would, while he was sick, and afterwards, while I was teaching my mother, I would go and open the store at 6 o'clock, because we had to get the newspapers and things ready for the morning rush. And then she would come down after she took care of my father. It was really interesting. We had no health care, no in-home health care, and all the things we have today. So the way she kept in touch with him while he was sick for 2 years was to call me before she left the house with my father still in bed. We'd leave the phone off the hook from about 10 o'clock to about 2:30 when I would return from high school. And every so often she would go to the open line and check with my father to see that he was okay by himself in our house. And then as soon as I got home from school, she would rush home and nurse my father until I got home at 6 o'clock.
That's great.
So it was a test for all of us, but I think it made us stronger. And anything after that was easy.
Social worker in Springfield, Massachusetts?
Actually, I went to college. I was interested in the civil rights movement in the 60s and wanted to go to Florida and the South and experience what the culture and the society was like that said to one human being that they were not as good as another human being simply because of the color of their skin. And I couldn't understand that from the reading I did in the North and all of the things that I lived with. So I spent 2 years in Florida, northern Florida, not Miami, northern Florida meaning Tallahassee, which was right near Georgia and Alabama, and was active in the civil rights movement. That was the time when Martin Luther King was marching in Selma, and we were part of that whole movement. And it taught me a great deal. I still don't have the answer as to why one person discriminates against the other. I experienced some of that as a Greek growing up in New England. I wasn't allowed to date certain girls because of my ethnic background and our kind of swarthy skin. So I had some sensitivity to that.
When you say I was not allowed, the community did not see this
No,
favorably?
girls' parents said that they could not, when I asked them to go on a date, they would not, they were not allowed to go with me.
Just because you were Greek?
That's right. And we had a different religion, and it was not understood, and it bothered me a great deal, which heightened my sensitivity. I have done some reading, a lot of reading since then, and I've learned that it was not unusual in the early days for Greeks to be discriminated against and often be treated as third world people in this country. Even here in San Francisco, in the early 30s, mid-20s, 1920s, in the newspapers, the Chronicle and those papers said that the Greek priests ought to go back where they came from if they didn't speak English and cut off their beards and stop wearing their tall black hats.
I've heard some weird stories to
That's right.
the same
So it was not unusual for Greek immigrants to be discriminated against. John Bradamus, one of my heroes, had a cross burned by the Ku Klux Klan on the lawn of his father's house because of who they were and their activities in Indiana in those days. So Greek Americans have had their experiences in discrimination, and I think that's why our community has always been at the forefront of civil rights in this country.
Look where we are today, though, the Greek community in America.
Absolutely. We have succeeded better than any other ethnic community. I think it's because of the strength of our culture and our ethnic character, as well as the kind of family values that virtually every Greek American is born.
Let's go back a little bit to your young years. You're a graduate, you're a social worker. For how long did you do that in the East Coast?
Well, I didn't stay in the East Coast very long because I never really felt comfortable in my hometown because of some of the early experiences I had. And I don't think I ever could have been elected mayor of my hometown because in New England, in those days, they tended to typecast you. And if you were the son of a bootblack, someone who shined shoes, you stayed in that class, or informally. And so I wanted to start fresh, sort of the immigrant in me, I guess, even though I was born in this country. I wanted to go someplace where no one knew who I was, who my family was, and see if I could succeed on my own. And so the furthest I could get away from Springfield, Massachusetts was to come to San Francisco, to California, which was the land of promise and opportunity in 1966. And so I got on a bus, Greyhound bus, because that was the cheapest way I could get out here, sold my old car, kissed my mother goodbye, she cried, and I left. And arrived here in September, on September 1st, my birthday, 1966. I was 26 years old and started working as a social worker in the low-income housing projects of San Francisco as a human rights advocate for poor people and elderly people to make sure that they were treated correctly by the housing authority and the rest of society. And I did that for about 3 years until I kind of fell into politics as part of my social work in dealing with members of the Board of Supervisors and other politicians. I came to the attention of Leo McCarthy.
I was going to ask you who was the influence, the person.
Leo McCarthy is my mentor and big brother and my hero in politics, an incredible man of deep commitment and intelligence who took me under his wing and taught me how to use the systems of government in a honorable way to help people who needed help from their government, whoever they may be, whether they were poor or rich or middle class. In this country, government stands to help everyone, but mainly he focused on the problems of the elderly, of civil rights, and of housing, and they fit my interests, so we became a very close team, and we are close even to this day. The other influence in my political life was Senator Nick Petras, who I never met until I was elected to the State Assembly in 1977, but I had followed from my very first day. As you know, every Greek follows every other Greek who's in the paper. And so I was reading about this name, which you instantly recognize as Greek, Senator Petras, and he was doing very progressive things like calling for the elimination of the combustible engine, which is what powers cars, because of pollution. And today, as you see, he was way ahead of his time. This is 25 years ago. But today we're going to the electric engine. We're doing things to remove smog from our air because it ultimately will ruin our whole environment. It already is. So Nick Petras was way ahead of everyone else, and he became one of my models and heroes, and still is to this day. He's a treasure to our community.
You met him in 1977.
1977, I went to the legislature, and I would go over to the Senate, and I would sit where the members of the Assembly can sit, and I would watch him as whenever he was going to present his legislation on the floor of the Senate, everything would stop so that people could listen to this orator. And I would sit there so I could learn how to present the issues that I was going to present in the other house, the Assembly, from Nick, because very often we were into the same kinds of issues, but Nick did it so much better than I. And the whole House, everybody in the Senate, would do the same thing because of his extraordinary presentation and style that was so convincing to the other senators. Right. So those two were the main influences in my life. Leo McCarthy, who was my employer and my mentor, and Nick Petras.
Tell us a little bit about the period between '69, that's when you first met McCarthy.
Yes.
And '77, the year you were elected. Did you held any other elected position?
No.
Did you have an appointed position? And how did you decide to run for the Assembly in California?
I never dreamed I'd be elected to anything. When I was in school, I was not a leader. I was a follower. I was not the captain of the baseball team. I was not the captain of the football team or any of those. I was not even on the safety patrol. As you know, in schools today, in elementary school and junior high school, they would have safety patrol. Kids would go out in the corridors and make sure that the corridors, everybody moved in an orderly way. I didn't even get to be a safety patrol leader. But when I started working for Leo McCarthy, I wanted to learn the skills and techniques of government so that I could be more effective as a social worker in helping achieve change in our society for the elderly, for poor people, and for working class people who very often are denied equal opportunity in this country. And so I would work with Leo on nursing home reform to make sure that the elderly are properly taken care of when they're infirm and frail. Civil rights legislation to protect people on basis of their skin or their culture or their sexual orientation, whatever it might be, to protect people against discrimination, because I had felt that as a youngster. So Leo taught me how to use government in that way, and so from 1969 to 1974, I was helping him with the legislative process. In 1974, I was getting ready to leave him because I had finished almost 5 years, and I wanted to finish my doctor's degree I'd been working on over at Berkeley in gerontology so that I could become a professor. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to teach at a university. But fate played a role a little bit. In 1973, I was shot twice on near where I live on Potrero Hill, as I was in a public housing project and a low-income housing project to help some of the people who live there get a health clinic. A racist person from the African American community who was part of the black Muslim radical group called the Death Angels, came up and shot me twice in the chest as I was leaving a meeting that was very productive and very friendly.
Was it serious?
Yeah, it was. It almost killed me. But I was very lucky, being Greek and having the body of a Greek god in those days. I was able to sustain my health, and I was in and out of hospitals for a year. I was only 34, so I was in great physical condition, which helped save my life, and great doctors and surgery at San Francisco General. But for a year, I was in and out of hospitals with surgery and those kinds of things. Anyway, that changed my life a little bit because it delayed my schedule for going back to the university and finishing my doctor's degree. And so in 1975, an opportunity came to run for the assembly. And Leo McCarthy, my mentor, said, "Art, this is a perfect opportunity for you to be an assemblyman and be your own legislator rather than be my assistant, my chief of staff," which is what he was as the Speaker of the House. I said, "But I'm a social worker." He says, "A social worker is a perfect person to be a public official, to serve the people. That's what we do." So he supported me. He helped me raise all of the money that I needed, and went and spoke with people on my behalf, taught me how to handle myself as a candidate, and lo and behold, I was elected in 1976, where the elections were held, and to my amazement, I was an assemblyman from San Francisco, one of the great cities of the world, and went to Sacramento and worked with Nick and worked with Leo.
Were
and
you
all
married then?
Yes, I got married in 1975. To Sherry, my wife, who you know, and I had met her in 1971 in the Capitol, and so we conducted a Greek romance, which was a long one, 4 years, and then finally we're married in 1975.
So she, of course, was there to support you.
And always has
campaign.
been, and always, absolutely. Right. She was an invaluable asset. In fact, people often say they voted for her rather than me.
So here you are in Sacramento, serving from 77.
From 77, and I started doing all the things I had done with Leo McCarthy, and learned a great deal and contributed a little bit. In about 1986, people started saying to me, "You ought to run for mayor." And I said, "Oh my, that's a big position." They said, "But you're the one that we think ought to be the person there." So I looked at it, and frankly, I didn't see other candidates who represented my philosophy, and I thought that the people of San Francisco ought to have a choice